Very good morning, learners. So I hope whatever we have covered yesterday, such as how to install Anaconda or how to navigate through the different distributions or different frameworks which are available inside the Anaconda, how to go through it, that was clear to you all. And so we are moving today to the next topic, that is nothing but a topic of the variables. Now we'll start with the topic of the variable. We'll just discuss few of the theory related to the variable. Then we will move on to our Jupyter notebook and we'll try some practical examples of the variable. If you have any doubts or if you want to ask anything, you can just raise your hand so that I'll come to know and I'll address to your issues at that point itself. Otherwise, you can take a note of all your issues and we can discuss it at the end of the session. Okay, so I'll just share my screen so that you will come to know few of the things related to the theory part of the variable. Yes, so I just hope you are able to see my screen where you can see that the screen is having the content related to the Python variable. Now, before directly jumping to the variable or what the Python variable is, let us just try to understand what is the use of this variable or from where this term variable might have come. Now, if we just go to the literal meaning of the simple word called as variable, something which has ability to vary, something which has ability to change is nothing but variable for us, right? So in the coding, why do we require variable? So for example, if I have a very huge equation and I want that equation to run multiple times in my code. Now, instead of running or writing that equation multiple times in a code, why not to store the result of that entire equation into some object and call that object every time whenever you want to refer to that particular equation. So this exact thing is done by the variable. So what the variable has the ability, so it has the ability to store the value. Okay, why we require variables? So that instead of running a certain expression or instead of running a certain thing multiple times, we can store the value of that expression into a variable and calling a variable easier as compared to that of writing, executing, and then getting the value of the entire equation. So that's the reason why we require the variable. Like in real life scenarios, you all have your own name, right? We never call a person like, okay, the one who is standing behind the person having the red shirt and so on. We call you with your name. So your name is nothing but the variable for us because we can access you as a person by your name. So likewise, whenever you are creating an expression, whenever you have any value, then we have to give name to that value so that becomes easier in order to access that value. So we require variable. I hope this concept is clear that what is variable. Now let us just go to the Python variable. As we know that every language has rules using which we can write the code or write the syntax. So we have to follow the syntactical rules. So though variable is available as a concept in all programming languages, we have to understand in depth what the Python variable is, because right now we are studying the Python. Whenever you'll move to the R programming language, that time you'll understand what the R variables are, what are the rules of declaring those variables, what type of values that those variables can access, and so on. So with respect to every programming language, though the concept will remain same, but the way, the syntax in which that concept will be handled would be slightly different. So let us just try to understand from the perspective of the Python that how one can create it and actually, how it is stored in the memory. So if you want to create a variable, you just have to give name to that variable. So for example, A or B and so on. In a good coding paradigms, it is always suggested that whenever you give the name of variable, it should have some meaning. So for example, I'm having one equation and I want to assign, some particular value to a variable, which is a result of that equation. So in that case, I can give the name of the variable as result underscore equation 1 or something like that, so that someone in the future, when referring to my code, will understand why I have created that variable. So for example, if you are solving a problem wherein you are taking the value of seconds from user and you're converting it into hours, or if you're converting it into minutes, In that case, when you acquire the value of the seconds, it's better to store it inside a variable called as second, right? If by mistakenly, if I'm giving some another name, suppose say I gave the name as PQR or XYZ, after few days when I or anyone else referring to my code, that person will not get any idea why I had created that variable. And that's the reason whenever you are creating a clean codes, that time it is very important for us to keep an eye that what type of name of variable we are giving. So over here, as you can see, these are just the specimen examples. So that's the reason here you won't find out any name which is detailed as such, like we have just discussed. So here there is one variable A which is assigned with the value 3, one variable B which is assigned with the value of A, one variable A which is assigned with the value of hello, and so on. So what we try to say from this particular example is, you can store a value of integer format, you can store a value of a character format, you can store the entire word, you can store the entire paragraph. So whatever you have, if you want to store, variables are going to help you out. Fine. Now, with respect to the variable, there comes a concept of memory as well. Because when we are saying that we are storing, but when we store, we need to have some kind of memory. Then only we are going to store it. And that's why whenever we learn the concept of variable, it's mandatory for us to understand the concept of memory as well, because at the end, the variable store its value in memory. Fine. So here, as we can see, we have some name of the variable. What is its type? So suppose say the type is integer. What's the value with that variable? Suppose say the value is 3. So name of variable, what is the type of the value that it is holding, and what is the exact value that that we are assigning to that variable. All these things matter whenever we are creating the variable. In Python, there is not necessary that you have to explicitly say what type of value the variable holds. But in other programming languages such as Java, C, C++, in this case, it is necessary that you have to provide the data type. That means I need to write integer a is equal to 3. But Python gives me that facility that I can simply write a is equal to 3. The Python interpreter is so intelligent that it understands if the user is storing value 3, then it has to be integer. If the user is storing the value, say, edubridge, then it has to be a string. If the user is storing the value, suppose say 5.69, then it has to be a float. So this intelligence is already there with the Python interpreter. So it is not required for us, to explicitly say that int a is equal to 3, or float 5 is equal to 5.6, or string a is equal to edubridge, and so on. So it's not absolutely necessary. In order to assign value to a variable, we need to use equal to operator. So as we can see over here, everywhere we have used this equal to operator. So you must have got an idea that how to read it. So if not yet, let me just explain to you. When you say a is equal to 3, actually, from the coding point of view or from the coding perspective, how one should read this, that the value 3 is stored inside a variable a. So whenever you are reading any kind of assignment, it is always read from right to left and not from left to right. Okay, this is a good practice. Whenever someone asks you in an interview that, okay, read this particular code or demonstrate this particular code, in that case, all these small things do matter. Okay, sometimes it happens that these things are very primary, and so we tend to forget them, or we generally take it very lightly, that these type of questions won't be asked in an interview, so we take it very lightly. But just don't make this mistake, because you'll find out in an interview all these basic things play a very and very vital role. Okay, because if your basics are not clear, obviously your higher concepts will also not be clear. So that's how they judge you in an interview. So that's why, just to make sure that all these basic concepts such as variable, data structures, the type of data, these seems to be very easy, but these are very important and we tend to forget it till the time of interview. So just don't make this mistake. So as I told you, after the detailed explanation of the variable, we are going to move to our Jupyter in order to understand that how it works. So let us just move to our Jupyter screen. Yeah. So this is my Jupyter screen, and here we will create one simple new Python code. I would like to give the name to this code as, suppose, say ed, and I'm giving the name as program 1. So this line, if you just can see, this is called as a cell, or one can call it as a shell as well, because we are going to write the code over here inside this. As you can see that the line is constantly blinking. This is called as a prompt. So whenever you see the prompt, there it is asking you to enter the code. So here one has to write the code. So for example, if I write like this is my first code. If you have just properly checked here, I have used the hash symbol, which indicates that do not run or do not interpret this line. This is just a comment. Fine. So this is just a comment. Now I'll write the code in a different cell or different shell, because this is just a kind of a common shell that I have created. If you want to create new shell, just see where the mouse cursor is. I'm not over here, but I'm in this particular area. You can see that this part has become blue in color, right? When I write inside, this becomes green. When I'm outside, it becomes blue. So when I'm at this blue color, I just have to click on insert cell below. So it will create a new cell for me where I can write my code. Here I'll say that, yeah, learning variable, I'm creating my first variable, that is a is equal to 100. If I want to run a particular line, you can see that there is run option available, but I always select the way of control enter, because when I type, that time this control enter is very close because we are typing on a keyboard, right? So I just press this control enter. As you might have noticed here, it becomes input 1. That means I inserted some line, but this line is not having any output as such. Why? Because I'm simply assigning value 100 to a variable a. If I want to get the value of this particular variable a, then I have to write print a. So this is particularly the value of the a that it is printing on the shell. Fine. Now, as I said, every variable is associated with some kind of memory where it stores its value. So if I want to look into that what is that exactly memory location where a is storing its value 100, then I have to write print id of a. I'll get to know that this is the memory location where the value of a 100 is being stored. Fine. So I just hope this part is very clear to everyone. If you have any doubts, you can write inside the chat box as well. Fine. So I can see that you have understood till this point. Okay, great. So let me just show you what are the different types of variables we can create. So I'll just simply write over here types of variables. So here I am writing a is equal to 100, same as that of what I have written in the previous shell, or I'll make it as 1000. So when I'm writing a is equal to 1000, obviously the value of a will be overridden now. If I want to check the value of a instead of 100, now it is going to show me the value as 1000 because I have overridden that value. I can print this value by writing this a. Let us create another variable. I'm calling it as b. This time I am writing the value as 100.52. Let me just print the value of b. So as you can see that it has printed the float type of value. I hope you must have understood the difference. This was a normal whole value. This was a decimal type of value. Let me create one more variable where I'm writing the value 1 plus 7j. I'm printing the value of this particular variable. What's the type of this? You can write in a chat box. Absolutely. This is a kind of complex number. Very nice. Then here we are writing, suppose say EduBridge, and we are printing the value of this variable. So as you can see, this has printed the value of a string type of data. And one more thing, you can have some variable that stores the value like this. So as you all are aware, this is nothing but a kind of true or false. They are called as a Boolean types of values. So in short, what are the different types of variable we can create? So we can create integer type of data, we can create float type of data, we can create complex type of data, we can create string type of data, and we can create the type of Boolean data. Fine, so I just hope the concept of variable and what are the different types of variables that one can create in Python is clear to you. So you can just take a minute to look at the screen, and I would suggest or I would recommend you to type all these things on your screens as well, and let me know if you're having any doubt with it. Okay, so please help me out to understand that if you are facing any doubts. Okay, have you understood this concept? Great.